really weird, but we'll get into the transformation committee has made several recommendations. One of which we talk about a lot is the transfer portal and dates. So it's kind of similar to the two signing period rule, Craig, in that there'll be two periods that when football student athletes can enter the transfer portal and use the one-time transfer exception to be immediately eligible at the next institution. This is recommended by the AFCA, which is right here in Waco. Todd Berry, who we had on the show, was that last week or the week before?
It was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago. Well, it all runs together, but we had Todd Berry on the show. And the first period will begin the last Sunday in November, and then the first day of the early National Letter of Intent signing period, or 5 days after the institution's last contest, whichever occurs later. The second period would begin between April 15th and conclude on May 1st. And the Football Oversight Committee also clarified its support for a model that allows any student athlete who enters the transfer portal during one of the designated time periods to use the one-time transfer exception to be immediately eligible at the next institution, blah, 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 whether or not they find a match before the end of the designated signing period. So there are now there looks like there will be windows, which is good in that I think it'll help programs at least and student athletes get to the point where they it's just reasonable, where you're not on February 9th and then again on March 10th and all this time recruiting your own roster out of the blue. You at least have times where you have to really focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of know when you have to focus on it right now, but so what do you mean by that?
You don't have to, you can't, when it's coming. When the guys have to say, you still have to do it,
right?
But it won't be during spring football, which can start as early as the late part of February. So from after the first day of spring football, if you're not first in the depth chart, you could have a guy. You could have a guy on the 3rd day, on the 10th day, on the 12th day, all that. This way, when it's coming and you know what's going to happen, and you can also maybe make it through spring practice a little bit better without guys just automatically saying they're jumping in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, I need to see more of the details and read up on it. There's not a lot of this is just getting spit out right now in chunks. You know what I mean? And then there's also the caveat on all of these, but this is not official just yet. So it's all but official. But yeah, I mean, I think that transfer windows are something that we've talked about for quite a while now. You're not going to put NIL back in a box and put it in the back of the garage only to discover it again years later. It's not going away. You're not going to forget about it. It's very much on the forefront, and it's a big part now of how rosters are constructed and how teams are able to move on from year to year and restock their rosters. So, it's been fun to see that. It's been fun to see the big names that have jumped into the portal and whatnot. But, I mean, I think we can all agree that, yeah, it got a little bit too crazy of just, if we're going to relax a bunch of rules on players, which is overdue, I'm totally cool with that. But that doesn't mean you just go all the way to where it's just free reign to be able to do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. That's where I feel like we were heading until everybody finally just went, wait, hold on a freaking second. So they can just leave whenever they want. They can be committed, be on campus for 2 months, and then get a DM from some assistant coach, a collective somewhere else, and then just bolt. It was set up in such a bizarre way to where you just really had zero control. You went from having all the control to zero control, and I don't think you should have all the control if you're the universities. I don't think the players should have all the control. I don't think either one should have zero either. I think there should be a middle ground, and I think having a transfer window where at least coaches and schools too, because you got to think, these guys don't just show up and enroll in the football program. There's classes and financial aid and all these different pieces of paper to sign and get set up. So I think having a set time period where you know what you can do and you know what you can't do and you know that nobody else can do it either is good, because that brings clarity. That's all anybody's been wanting, really. I mean, I know others have wanted some other things, but the entire time I've just been banging the table on just give us some set of rules and some clarity on what you can and cannot do, instead of just everybody do whatever they want to, and then we'll try and police it, 5 months after the fact. That's never going to work. But of course, that was the NCAA's plan, because it was never going to work. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all for transfer windows. I think it makes that time period, a little bit more exciting, because you kind of know, now we're getting to the end of the road. And we have had these transfer portal deadlines where you have had to, be in by a certain time, or else you lose the year or whatever. But more organization, more direct directions on kind of everybody's path. I am all for that. So I'm happy to see that. Now, there are some particulars that need to be sorted out. I saw one mention of having the schools that don't make bowl games, their transfer window would be a little bit different than those that do make bowl games. I feel like I read that earlier today, but can't find the tweet at the moment. So need to follow up on that and make sure that I've got all the bones of this down. But, it's very interesting how much change is occurring just today in terms of what they're pushing forward. And they're not wasting any time, and that's good to see because there's not a lot of time to waste. They've already done that for years and years and years.
Look, the intersection of the one-time transfer rule and the COVID year has created I don't want to say roster crisis, but it's roster madness at least.
Yeah.
To where, okay, so I have to stay within the rules. I can only sign 25 players, but say I lost 22 seniors. Okay, so that would make sense that you have 25 scholarships coming in. But I also lost 9 transfers. Well, it's 34 people plus some people that may medically retire. You might be 40 people down in your roster and can only sign 25. That means you have to go to the transfer portal for 15. Well, dear God, I mean, it's hard. Like with the amount of competition in the transfer portal, and then do you want to just go be like, okay, well, I need 15 guys. Let me just go down the list. Well, that's not going to help you either, especially if you're a coach trying to keep your job. So now, as long as you're under the 85 scholarship limit, you can sign as many people as you want.
Yeah, that's another part of this that, there's 3 keys that I've seen. It's championship games, it's transfers, and it's signing classes, right? I mean, and those all needed to be addressed to some extent. So, the chunk of feedback, I finally found the tweet, and Nicole Auerbach had put it up. I mean, it's like half a page of a novel, the transfer window. So I'm going to have to read that a couple of times to make sure I've got all my bearings on that. But, as far as the signing classes go, when you do hear about, everybody immediately points to Saban or to the halves, which is logical because that's what all this is really geared towards ultimately anyways. But you do, though, look at other schools and you look at Kansas and you see, them talking about the fact that they're, at one point or another 15, 20 under the scholarship limit. And it's not for a lack of trying. It's not a lack of trying that got them there. It's just attrition. It's the transfer portal. It's a new coach being there and getting his bearings and, probably nudging some guys out the door of like, hey, you're probably not going to play here. You don't fit here. You'd be better off elsewhere, which is, what he needs to do for his team, but also good for those kids as well to at least, be clear with them on what they need to do and that they're not going to probably see the field there. So, hey, go elsewhere and play. But, as far as that goes, everybody, I think when they first saw this mentioned a couple weeks ago, thought, oh, my God, Alabama and Texas and Georgia, they're all going to sign 45 guys a year. Well, the only way they're going to be allowed to sign 45 guys a year, unless I'm completely missing something, is if they lose like 25 guys to the transfer portal. Now, some schools, like West Virginia, tried to flirt with that. It feels like, not quite that, but they were on their way.
Tennessee lost 22 between
Tennessee,
between Pruitt and Heupel.
So I mean, there are going to be instances where that probably happens, but you're going to go like, damn, like they lost 20 dudes to transfers, so they have to do that. But yeah, that's something, though, that with all of these rules, I do wonder, especially this one, like how teams now abuse this. Because that's what they ultimately all do. They don't get rules passed and they go, okay, we're satisfied. No, there's always inevitably somebody from somewhere that's like, all right, how can I bend this rule and use it to our advantage? That is college football at its core. And so, I've already